I sat quietly at my mother's birthday dinner, surrounded by the warm chatter of family celebration. The private room at the restaurant was heavy with the scent of expensive wine and roasted lamb. It was a familiar performance. We were the Montoyas, and we performed family unity with practiced precision. 25 pairs of eyes focused on Mom as she opened gifts, her smile widening with each tissue paper revelation. A silk scarf from my sister Lorena, a first edition book from my brother Conrad. Mom Eleanor was the sun around which our family system orbited, and tonight she was radiant in her assigned role. I'd given her a spa weekend. She'd kissed my cheek and said, "Oh, Gabriella, how thoughtful," before setting it aside to unwrap a gold bracelet from my father. My water glass felt heavy in my hand. This was comfort. This was family. This was the place I had always belonged, even when I hadn't felt it. I'd spent 33 years learning the script, mastering the cues, and understanding when to smile and when to laugh. Dad, Marcus, raised his glass, commanding the room's attention the way he'd done at every family gathering for as long as I could remember. His voice was the gavel that called our family to order. "To Eleanor," he announced, his voice carrying across the long table. 65 years young and still putting up with all of us. Laughter rippled through the room. I joined in, lifting my water glass in that same practiced motion. My smile felt painted on, a mask I'd worn for so long it was starting to crack at the edges. Marcus's gaze shifted to me, that familiar glint in his eye, the one that always appeared right before he made someone the center of his particular brand of humor. It was the look of a predator singling out the weakest member of the herd. My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming. "If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." "And to Gabriella," he continued, gesturing toward me with his wine glass. The room fell quiet again, all eyes swiveling in my direction. Still fighting the good fight with that... what do you call it again? Oh, the pajama laptop job. My hand tightened around the water glass, my knuckles white. "Changing the world from your couch, right?" My smile froze in place. Laughter erupted around the table, louder this time, sharper. Aunt Catherine snorted into her napkin. Uncle Patrick shook his head with that same dismissive chuckle he reserved for stories about his daughter's art degree. I looked for an ally. My brother Conrad caught my eye briefly before looking away, his smile uncomfortable but unwilling to fade. He was a lawyer. He understood hierarchy, and Dad was at the top. Lorena, a hospital administrator, just sipped her wine, her expression one of mild amusement. My work, my brand strategy consultancy, was intangible to them. It wasn't law or medicine or finance. It wasn't real. "Sounds like a midlife crisis to me," Marcus had said 18 months earlier when I'd explained my decision to leave my corporate media role. Bit early for that, though. He hadn't even looked up from his newspaper. The pattern was always the same. Conrad's law firm promotions were celebrated with champagne. Lorena's work was doing something that matters. My other brother, Mitchell, had a finance career that was building something tangible. But my work? Always the punchline. "How's the little side business?" they'd ask, as if I were selling homemade jam at farmers markets rather than rebuilding struggling companies' market positions. Something shifted inside me, a tectonic plate moving after years of relentless pressure. I saw with perfect clarity what I'd been trying not to see for months, for years. They will never respect my choices. They will never acknowledge my success. The approval I'd spent 33 years chasing would always remain just out of reach, a carrot dangled by a hand that enjoyed watching me run. The realization didn't come with panic or heartbreak, just clarity, a crystal clear understanding that washed over me like cool water. I was done. Without a word, I placed my napkin beside my plate. The linen was heavy, expensive. I stood. My chair made a soft scraping sound on the polished floor. The laughter died instantly. 25 faces turned to me, their expressions ranging from confusion to annoyance. I smoothed the front of my dress, a deliberate, calm motion. I looked directly at my mother, whose smile had faltered, her eyes wide with sudden panic. "Happy birthday, Mom," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked away from the table. I walked out of the private room, my footsteps the only sound in the suddenly stunned silence behind me. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. I simply left. I walked through the bustling main dining room, past tables of strangers laughing and talking, oblivious to the family system that had just fractured behind me. The hostess at the front gave me a polite smile. I nodded, pushed open the heavy glass door, and stepped out into the cool night air. The silence of my car was a relief. I sat for a full minute, just breathing. The pressure in my chest, the one I'd carried for so long I'd mistaken it for a part of me, began to ease. The barrage of texts began before I even reached my car. My phone lit up on the passenger seat, buzzing like an angry wasp. The first was from Conrad. "Dad was just kidding. Don't be so sensitive." The second from Lorena. "Way to make Mom's birthday about you. Really mature, Gabriella." Then my mother. "Please come back inside, sweetie. Don't ruin the evening." Marcus didn't mean it. I started the car and drove home in silence, the phone buzzing incessantly beside me. Each vibration was another link in the chain they were trying to pull me back with. Sensitive, immature, ruining it. The family-approved labels for anyone who broke rank. I parked in my garage, walked up to my apartment, and put the phone on silent. I made tea. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. The silence was absolute. For the first time in my adult life, silence was my answer, and it spoke volumes. By morning, the messages had escalated to calls. 6 missed calls from Eleanor, 4 from Conrad, 2 from Lorena, none from Marcus. He never initiated the cleanup. He had people for that. By that afternoon, the familiar heavy knock came at my apartment door. Not a polite rap, but an insistent, demanding summons. I looked through the peephole. Mom stood there, her face etched with worry. Dad loomed behind her, his arms crossed, radiating impatience, and Conrad hovering uncomfortably in the hallway, the designated unwilling backup. I took a deep breath, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door. Eleanor started immediately. "Gabriella, honey, thank goodness. We've been so worried." "This has gone on long enough," Marcus announced, already pushing past me into the apartment. He didn't wait for an invitation. He surveyed my living room, my clean, minimalist space, as if it were a messy crime scene. "You're dragging out the issue, and frankly, it's embarrassing," he said, turning to face me. Conrad lingered by the door. "Gia, come on, let's talk this out." My hands were steady as I opened the door wider, a deliberate action that felt nothing like the accommodation it resembled. It was a gesture of control. "You've never respected my work," I said. My voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. It cut through the heavy anxiety in the room. "Not once in 18 months. Not once in my entire life." I looked at all 3 of them. Eleanor, whose mouth was opening in protest. Conrad, who suddenly found the floor fascinating. Marcus, whose face was darkening to a familiar shade of red. "I'd like you to leave now." Eleanor blinked rapidly. "Gabriella, don't be ridiculous. We're your family." "Now listen here," Marcus boomed, taking a step toward me, his finger jabbing the air. "I will not be spoken to like this in this apartment you're renting with money from who knows where." "Please leave," I repeated, my voice just as quiet, just as firm. I held his gaze. They've always operated on a clear hierarchy. Marcus leads, Eleanor enables, and the siblings follow the established pattern. For 33 years, I've been a reliable part of that machinery. The quiet one, the accommodating one, the one who maintains the peace at all costs. Now I was a malfunction. I was a broken cog in the system, and their faces shifted between shock, anger, and confusion as they processed this unexpected failure. "You are making a huge mistake, young lady," Marcus said, his voice low and threatening. "I don't think I am." He stared at me for another long second, searching for the crack, the flicker of fear he always relied on. He didn't find it. With a sound of pure disgust, he turned on his heel. "Fine. Come on, Eleanor, Conrad. She wants to be alone? Let her be alone." He marched out the door. Eleanor gave me one last pleading look. "Honey, please." "Goodbye, Mom." She flinched, then hurried after him. Conrad was the last to leave. He paused in the doorway. "Gia, was this really necessary?" "Yes," I said. He shook his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "You're just proving his point." He pulled the door shut behind him. I locked the deadbolt. The emotional toll of years spent trying to fit their mold, of holding the steady corporate job I hated, of showing up at every event with the right smile, of ignoring every snide remark, washed over me. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. I didn't cry. I just breathed. The silence in my apartment was no longer an absence. It was a presence. It was mine. 6 weeks passed. 6 weeks of absolute silence. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails. It was as if the Montoyas had performed a clean excision. I was removed, and the family body had healed over the wound, pretending there was never a scar. My work became my refuge. I poured every ounce of energy I had into my clients, landing 2 new retainers and finishing a major rebranding strategy for a struggling tech firm. The work was good. It was real. Then the ivory envelope arrived. It sat on my kitchen counter like a landmine. Gold embossed lettering announced Mitchell and Samantha's engagement celebration, the date highlighted in elegant calligraphy. I opened it. Inside, the heavy cardstock invited me to a party at my parents' country club. My name was printed on the invitation, as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't walked out, as if they hadn't shown up at my door. I traced my finger over the RSVP card. There was no personal note, no "let's talk" or "we miss you." Just a presumption, a command performance. I was expected to attend, wearing the appropriate smile and a convenient amnesia about their behavior. At the bottom, in Mitchell's familiar scrawl, was a single line. "Gabriella, we hope you can make it." Hope, not want or need, just hope. Conditional and distant. My phone buzzed. A text from Conrad. "You get the invite. Mitchell wants to know if you're coming. He's trying to finalize numbers with the club. No mention of the standoff." "No, how are you? Just business as usual in the Montoya family. Sweep conflicts under the rug until the lumps become too large to ignore. Then just pretend the rug isn't lumpy." I didn't respond. I opened Instagram, my thumb scrolling almost involuntarily. Eleanor's page, a photo from last weekend, a family dinner I wasn't invited to. There they were. Marcus, Conrad, Lorena, Mitchell, and his fiancée, Samantha, all gathered around my parents' dining table, laden with pasta and wine, smiling for the camera. The caption read, "A wonderful family night." The comment section revealed the punchline, a comment from my father, Marcus. Thankfully, no sensitive souls at this table tonight, just good food and good company. 17 likes, including ones from Conrad, Lorena, and Mitchell. My stomach tightened as I scrolled through more posts. Photos of family outings, inside jokes, celebrations continuing without pause, without me. In their narrative, I was simply the difficult daughter throwing a tantrum. I was the one expected to get over it and return to my assigned role. The realization landed like concrete in my chest. They saw my absence as temporary, my boundaries as negotiable, my hurt as an inconvenience. The laptop chimed with an incoming video call. My mother's name flashed on the screen, but the thumbnail showed everyone, all of them, gathered in my parents' living room, their faces pixelated and grim. A family intervention disguised as a casual chat. I stared at the accept button for a long moment. Then, bracing myself, I clicked. "Gabriella, honey, we've been trying to reach you." Mom's voice carried that familiar sing-song quality that emerged when she was trying to smooth over a conflict. Dad leaned into the frame, his face filling the screen. "Turn your camera on, Gabriella. We need to talk like adults." I clicked the camera icon, sitting straighter. It was an old reflex, squaring my shoulders when facing family judgment. 5 faces stared back at me. Mom and Dad on the sofa, Conrad, Lorena, and Mitchell crowded around. "We need to clear the air before Mitchell's engagement party," Mom said, her smile strained at the edges. "The whole family will be there. We need to present a united front." "I haven't decided if I'm attending," I said. My voice was calm. 5 faces registered identical expressions of shock. Even through the screen, I felt the weight of their collective disapproval. "What do you mean you haven't decided?" Mitchell pushed forward, his face indignant. "It's my engagement party." "I understand that, Mitchell, but—" Conrad cut me off, his lawyer voice in full effect. "This is exactly why we have to walk on eggshells around you, Gia. You make everything a federal case. Dad makes one little joke." "I didn't realize respecting my work was walking on eggshells," I replied, my voice dangerously quiet. Lorena sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Oh, stop. Have you considered talking to someone professionally? You've always been sensitive, but this is extreme, even for you." Sensitive. The word hung there, stripped of its meaning, reframed as a weapon, a weakness, a character flaw, not a legitimate response to years of dismissal. "You can't miss this, Gabriella," Mitchell said, leaning toward the camera. "It would completely ruin my special day if my own sister wasn't there." "That's not my intention." "You've always been the difficult one, Gabriella." Dad's voice overrode mine, louder, final, the gavel coming down. "Always trying to be different instead of just being part of this family, this little business of yours. It's a phase. Family is permanent." The labels they'd assigned me since childhood. Different, difficult, sensitive. "If you miss this party," Mom added softly, delivering the threat with gentle hands, "it will permanently damage your relationship with Mitchell, with all of us. Is that what you want?" The subtext was clear. Conform or be cast out. Play your part or lose your place. The family system tolerated no defectors. "Think about what this means," Lorena continued. "All the extended family will be there. Aunt Catherine, Uncle Patrick. What will everyone think if you're the only one missing?" The practical consequences unfolded before me. The whispers, the questions, the answers shaped by my absence, by their narrative. "We're trying to help you," Conrad said, his tone earnest, as if he truly believed it. "Don't you see that?" The call ended 30 minutes later, with no resolution, just a heavy, hanging expectation. I sat alone in my apartment, the screen dark. The choice before me felt impossible: maintain my dignity or maintain my family ties. Neither option promised peace. My laptop pinged with a new email. I wiped my eyes and clicked it open, expecting another client fire. It was from Josephine, the CEO of the publishing house I'd worked with last quarter. They had been on the brink of closure before my rebrand strategy. The email was short. "Gabriella, we've just closed our most successful quarter in 5 years. The board specifically mentioned you as the quiet force behind our company's transformation. Thought you should know. Best, Josephine." I stared at the message, a slow warmth spreading through my chest. A quiet force. Someone saw the value in my work. Someone recognized what I had built. As I sat reading that email, the ivory invitation on my counter seemed to demand an answer. The question wasn't whether I'd attend Mitchell's party. It was whether I'd continue attending the performance of family at the expense of my truth. The pressure ramped up. The family phone tree was activated, branches heavy with judgment. First, Aunt Catherine. "Gabriella, dear, I hear you're causing some drama. Before Mitchell's big day. Your mother is just beside herself. You know how she gets. Then, Uncle Patrick. Gia, your father is very disappointed. You need to make this right. Family is family. Then, my cousin Stephanie. Are you really skipping Mitchell's party? That's kind of cold. But the most calculated move came from my mother. She called on a Tuesday morning. Hi, sweetie, I know you're busy with your thing, but we scheduled the pre-engagement dinner at our house for Thursday night. Just family. Everyone will be there. Mitchell specifically asked for you. Thursday night. I looked at my calendar. 7:00 p.m. Thursday. My final presentation for the Pacific National Bank contract. My largest potential client to date. A client that would legitimize my business in a way my family could not ignore. The coincidence felt too perfect to be accidental. I have a client meeting that weekend, Mom. A big one, and a critical pitch on Thursday. Her sigh carried decades of practiced disappointment. A meeting? Gabriella, this is your brother. Some things are more important than work. You really need to get your priorities straight. The line clicked dead. I stared at the proposal for Pacific National Bank glowing on my screen. My back ached from hunching over my laptop for 14 hours straight. It was 2 a.m. This was the third night this week I'd worked until dawn. Not because the projects demanded it, but because proving my business wasn't a hobby had become an obsession. The irony didn't escape me. Working myself to exhaustion to prove something to people who refused to see it. Before every family call, the anxiety started as a flutter in my stomach and climbed to my chest, making my hands shake and my thoughts scatter. I'd developed rituals to counter it. Deep breaths, shoulder rolls, rehearsed responses to potential criticisms. No, this isn't just a phase. Yes, I have actual clients. No, I don't regret leaving my corporate job. Words practiced in the shower, in front of mirrors, while driving. Ammunition stockpiled for battles I always lost anyway. Last Christmas, I'd stayed home to finalize a campaign launch, watching my family's celebration unfold through Instagram stories. Mom in her red apron, Dad carving the turkey. The empty chair at the table nobody mentioned. I saved the P&B proposal and shut my laptop. Sleep felt like a distant memory. I had to land this client. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about survival. A knock at my door startled me. It was nearly 6:01 p.m., and I hadn't left my apartment all day. I was drowning in spreadsheets for the PNB pitch. I peered through the peephole to find Ramona, my neighbor from 3B, holding something wrapped in a kitchen towel. I barely knew her. We just exchanged polite nods in the elevator. I opened the door. Hi, she said, offering a small, kind smile. She looked at my messy bun, my oversized sweatshirt, and the dark circles under my eyes. You looked like you could use something warm. She handed me a loaf of bread, still radiating heat. Thank you, Ramona. You didn't have to do that. I know, she said. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the one we're born into. The simple kindness, the casual understanding caught me off guard. It was an arrow of empathy that pierced the armor I'd built around myself. Would you like some coffee? I asked, the first human interaction I'd initiated in days that didn't involve client meetings or family tension. She smiled. I'd love some. Thursday. The day of the PNB pitch and the pre-engagement dinner. My stomach was in knots. This pitch wasn't just another job, it was the key. I was in the final stages of signing a lease for a physical studio space in the Arts District. It was a $24,000 commitment, a massive leap of faith that required a significant, stable client to back it up. PNB was that client. Landing them meant the studio was real. It meant I could finally build something tangible, something not even Marcus could dismiss. I spent the morning rehearsing. I triple-checked my slides. I reviewed my analytics. I was ready. My phone buzzed. Mom, dinner is at 7. Don't be late. And please, Gabriella, wear something nice. I texted back. "Mom, I told you I have my P&B pitch tonight. I can't make it." Her reply was instant. "I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Be here." I threw the phone onto my sofa. I had my presentation at 6 p.m. I'd be fine. I'd do the pitch, land the client, and then deal with the family fallout. At 4:30 p.m., an email landed in my inbox. The subject line, "Urgent, P&B meeting reschedule." My blood went cold. I clicked it open. It was from the vice president, my main contact, Gabriella. "My apologies for the last-minute change, but an unavoidable board meeting has just been called for this evening. I'm afraid I have to move our 6 p.m. presentation. The only other time I have available this week is tonight at 7:30 p.m. I know it's short notice, but it's that, or we postpone until mid-next month. Please let me know if 7:30 works. Regards, Mr. Davies. 7:30 p.m., the exact time the family-only dinner at my parents' house was starting. The pre-engagement party. It was too perfect. Unavoidable board meeting. It was flimsy. Pacific National Bank. My father, Marcus, played golf with half their board. He pulled strings. He collected favors. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a power play. He was forcing me to choose my pajama job or my family. He was setting me up to fail, to prove his own point that my work wasn't serious. Rage, cold and pure, flooded my system. My hands were shaking, but not from anxiety, from fury. I didn't email back. I picked up my phone and dialed Davies' direct line. He picked up on the third ring. "Mr. Davies, Gabriella Montoya." "Ah, Ms. Montoya, you got my email then. A terrible inconvenience, I know. Can you make 7:30? His voice was smooth, practiced. "No," I said. "I can't. But I am still available at 6 p.m. as scheduled." There was a pause. "As I said, I have a board meeting." "I understand that's what your email said," I replied, my voice level. "But this presentation is the final step in a 3-month process. Postponing until next month is not a viable option for either of us. I'll be at your office at 6 p.m. If you can't make it, please send a colleague who is empowered to make a decision." The silence on the line was heavy, hostile. "Míos." "Montoya," he said, his voice dropping the polite veneer. "I don't think you're in a position to be making demands. This is a significant contract. Perhaps your consultancy isn't quite ready for this level of business." There it was, the dismissal, the same tone my father used. "And perhaps P&B isn't the right partner for me," I retorted, stunned at my own boldness. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Davies." I hung up. I stared at my phone. What had I just done? I just burned the client. I just torpedoed my own studio. The $24,000 lease deposit, I was going to lose it. The weight of it hit me. I'd let my anger, my pride make me fail. My phone rang again. It was Conrad. I almost didn't answer. I was too raw, too furious. But I jabbed the screen. "What?" "Whoa, okay," Conrad said, taken aback. "Hostile. Look, are you coming to this dinner or what? Mom's about to lose it over the RSVP list for the main party." "I can't, Conrad, I told her." "I'm working." "Working?" He laughed. That same dismissive Montoya laugh. "Gia, it's one dinner. What could possibly be more important than family?" "My business," I snapped. "The one you all think is a joke. Come on, it's not a... I'm investing $24,000 in a physical studio space, Conrad." The words hung in the air. The line went silent. I hadn't told anyone. It was my secret, my leverage. "You're... what?" His disbelief was palpable. $24,000 on a lease? Where did you get that kind of money?" "From my pajama laptop job," I said. "That's my priority now. That's what I'm working on. I'm building something, and I'm not going to let him." I didn't have to say his name, or you or anyone sabotage it, so no, I won't be at the dinner. "Gia, wait." I hung up on him, too. I sat at my desk, my heart hammering. I'd blown it. I'd lost the client, lost the studio, and drawn a new line in the sand with my family. The fury from the call with Davies had faded, leaving a cold, sharp panic. I had to fix this. I refused to let my father win. Refusing to accept defeat, I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to get through Davies. He was a gatekeeper, and my father held the key, so I would go around him. I spent the next 3 hours fueled by coffee and rage, researching Pacific National Bank. I tore through their annual reports, their press releases, their leadership bios. I wasn't looking for VPs. I was looking for the real power. And I found her. A new executive recently hired from the East Coast, the head of commercial innovation. She had no ties to my father's golf buddies. She was a disruptor. Her entire mandate was to find new aggressive partners. At 10 p.m., I sent her a bold, direct email. Subject: bypassing the middleman, a better strategy for PNB. Dear Ms. Alvarez, my name is Gabriella Montoya. My firm was in the final stages of a proposal with Mr. Davies, which was unfortunately just derailed by scheduling conflicts, I believe are external to PNB's best interests. My proposal is attached. It's solid. But the one I built for Mr. Davies was safe. The one I'm building for you is better. I can increase your new commercial client acquisition by 30% in 6 months, not the 15% I quoted him. I am not just a vendor, I am a partner. My work is not a hobby. I am signing a $24,000 lease on a new studio in the Arts District next week because my business is growing, with or without PNB. I'd prefer it be with. I am available tomorrow at 8 a.m. your office. I'll bring coffee. I hit send. It was the boldest, most aggressive move I'd ever made. I had restarted my efforts from scratch with no idea if it would work. I slept for 2 hours. At 7:15 a.m., my phone chimed. Ms. Montoya, I'll see you at 8. Bring the good coffee. A. Alvarez. That weekend, I signed the lease. The space was beautiful. Polished concrete floors, exposed brick, and a wall of windows overlooking the district. It was also completely, terrifyingly empty. I'd put down the deposit, my savings account now dangerously low. I sat on the floor, the echo of my breathing the only sound. On Saturday, my doorbell rang. It was Juliana and Matteo, old colleagues who had left the corporate world before I did. They were holding paint rollers, drop cloths, and 2 large pizzas. You didn't think you were doing this alone, did you? Juliana asked, pushing past me. We saw the lease signing on your Instagram story, Matteo said, setting the pizza down. Figured you'd need cheap labor. We work for Pepperoni. We spent the whole weekend painting. We laughed. We got paint in our hair. It was work, but it was joyful. The owners of the coffee shop downstairs brought up a tray of espressos. The florist from the corner delivered an arrangement with a note. To new beginnings. The vintage boutique owner across the hall stopped by with a hand-selected scarf. To match your new sign, she said. These people had no obligation to me, no shared DNA or holiday traditions, yet they celebrated my vision without question, without diminishment. I sat at my dining room table, now my temporary office, finalizing the guest list for my studio launch party. Clients who'd trusted me, collaborators who'd shared their expertise, Juliana, Matteo, Ramona, the business owners from my new building, industry friends who'd offered connections when my family offered only doubts. My phone buzzed. A calendar alert. Mitchell's engagement party. It was 2 weeks away. Saturday, June 12th. I looked at my empty event calendar for the launch. I looked at the date of the party. I scheduled my studio launch for Saturday, June 12th. 6 p.m. The exact same day, the exact same time. My cursor hovered over the Send Invitations button. My heart was racing with the magnitude of the choice. This wasn't just about missing a party or opening a studio. It was about declaring, once and for all, which life I was choosing. I took a deep breath and clicked send. The morning light streamed through the tall windows of my empty studio space, casting geometric patterns across the polished concrete floor. I checked my watch, 6:17 a.m. Saturday, June 12th. I'd been here since 4 a.m., methodically transforming this blank canvas into something real. The caterers were coming at 4 p.m., the bar at 5 hours, the guests at 6 hours. I slid the heavy walnut desk into position, my fingers tracing its smooth edges. Each piece of furniture I'd selected carried intention. The custom ergonomic chairs in soft charcoal fabric, the glass partitions that created distinct work areas while maintaining openness. The understated signage with my company name etched in a clean, confident font. Perfect alignment, I whispered, stepping back to assess the desk's position relative to the windows. The afternoon light would hit it just right during client meetings. Professional, not intimidating. I spent the next hour arranging client portfolios on the central table. Each leather-bound folder contained evidence of businesses transformed, strategies implemented, success measured in real numbers. My fingers lingered on the Pierce Outdoor Gear case study. Jonas Pierce, my first major client after leaving the corporate world, the one my father had called a small-time operation not worth the effort. When the last portfolio was placed, I stood in the center of the room and took it all in. The space breathed with possibility, professional, elegant, undeniably successful. For the first time since walking out of my mother's birthday dinner, I felt something close to peace. At 5:30 p.m., the first guests began to arrive. My clients, my new colleagues, my neighbors. The space filled with chatter and the clinking of glasses. At 6:15 p.m., I was deep in conversation with Ms. Alvarez from PNB, now my biggest client, when the mood at the doorway shifted. I turned. Lorena stood there, her expression hovering between annoyance and reluctant admiration. She was dressed for Mitchell's party. A sleek designer cocktail dress, perfect makeup, diamonds at her ears. She looked completely out of place, and she knew it. She was uninvited and unexpected. "So," she said, loud enough for the conversation to dip, "this is it. This is why you're missing Mitchell's party. For work." She scanned the room, her eyes traveling over the space, tallying its worth. "Mitchell is devastated, you know. An engagement only happens once." Her voice carried the practiced guilt I'd heard all my life. But something was different. We were on my territory, not gathered around our parents' dining table. "Hello, Lorena. I'm surprised to see you," I said calmly. "I'll bet," she snapped. "Mom's car is waiting downstairs. She sent me to get you. She said, 'Gabriella's making a terrible mistake. Go get her before it's too late.'" She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "This is what you chose over your brother? A room with some new chairs and a cheese plate? It's pathetic, Gia. This isn't real. The party is real. Family is real. Stop this hobby party, and come on." She actually reached for my arm as if to physically drag me out. I pulled my arm back. "This is not a hobby, Lorena. This is my business, and this is my launch." "Oh, your launch," she scoffed. "Who are all these people? Are these the clients you're always talking about? Looks more like your yoga class." Before I could respond, a man approached from the refreshment table, a champagne flute in his hand. "Dane." "Gabriella," he boomed. It was Jonas Pierce, CEO of Pierce Outdoor Gear. He hadn't seen Lorena, or simply didn't care. "I was just telling the reporter from the Chronicle over there how your rebranding strategy boosted our Q2 sales by 38%. He gestured toward a woman taking notes near the window, a reporter with a press badge. Portland Commerce Journal. "This genius," Jonas said, clapping me on the shoulder, "saved our family business after 30 years of steady decline." Two other clients, hearing Jonas, joined the conversation. "She's not exaggerating," said the CEO of the tech firm. "She completely rebuilt our digital presence. We just secured our Series A funding, and her strategy deck was the centerpiece of our pitch." "She's the quiet force behind our turnaround," added Josephine, the publisher, who had just arrived. "She's Portland's best-kept secret." Lorena's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She was staring. Not at me, but at Jonas Pierce, at Josephine, at the reporter scribbling in her notebook. For the first time in our adult lives, I watched my sister recognize something in me she hadn't seen before. Not sensitive Gabriella, not difficult Gia. She was seeing a competent professional respected by other high-level professionals. I had no idea, she said quietly. Her phone was already out, but not to call Mom. She was snapping pictures of the space, of the crowd, of the custom signage. Does Marcus know what you've built here? She whispered. I didn't answer. I just watched her. I hope you don't mind the ambush, a voice called out. I turned to see Ramona, my neighbor, appearing at my elbow with a small group in tow. We wanted to surprise you. She had brought half our building, the retired teacher from 4B, the young couple from across the hall, even the cantankerous Mr. Wilson from the first floor, who was currently inspecting my cheese plate with a critical eye. They were all here, filling my professional space with the warmth of a community I never, ever found at a Montoya family gathering. I'm glad you came, I told Ramona, and I meant it more deeply than she knew. The afternoon unfolded like a dream, champagne glasses clinking, business cards exchanged, conversations flowing around me as I stood in the center of what I had created. This wasn't just a business milestone, it was the celebration of a new life, built entirely on my own terms. Later, I caught Lorena in the corner, texting rapidly, her thumbs flying across her screen. She gave me a look I couldn't decipher, not angry, not supportive, just complex. Then, with a clipped, "I have to go," she swept out of the studio. She didn't say goodbye. A minute later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The family group chat, which had been silent for me for weeks, had exploded. Lorena. Photo of the studio crowded with guests. Lorena. Photo of Gabriella talking to Jonas Pierce and the reporter. Lorena. Gabriella went all out, but didn't invite any of us. The responses flooded in immediately. Marcus. Choosing work over family again. Typical. Marcus. She's at a party instead of her brother's. Unbelievable. Mom. The space looks lovely, sweetie. Wish we could have been there. Are you coming to Mitchell's party now? It's not too late. Conrad. That's actually really impressive, G. Nice work. But Dad's right, you should be here. Mitchell. The studio looks professional, I guess. Sorry I missed it. But I'm really hurt you're not at my party, Gia. Dad again. Mitchell's engagement should have been the priority. Some things matter more than work. This is a disgrace. The mixed messages continued, contradictions filling my screen. Criticism of my priorities alongside reluctant admiration for what I'd built. For the first time, I saw cracks forming in their united front. I was about to slide my phone back into my pocket when a new message from Lorena lit up the screen. It wasn't to me, it was to the group. Lorena. Marcus, you don't get it. This isn't her pajama job. I'm looking at Jonas Pierce and a reporter from the Portland Commerce Journal. It's a major event. The chat went silent. My jaw dropped. Lorena. Lorena had defended me, or at least she'd defended the status of my event. Her motive was a mystery. Was it genuine respect, or was it pragmatic damage control, a sudden realization that dismissing me was a bad look? It didn't matter. She had broken ranks. My phone buzzed again, a private text from Mitchell. The studio looks really professional. Congrats. I slid the phone back into my pocket without responding. I rejoined my guests. The validation I had spent my entire life seeking from my family, now that it was arriving in fractured, confused pieces, felt strangely hollow. It was nothing compared to the reality I had built around me. Clients who valued my work, neighbors who showed up unasked, a reporter who saw my success as worthy of coverage. The studio launch wasn't just a business milestone, it was the first day of the rest of my life. The next day, my phone buzzed with the 7th text message in an hour. I turned it face down on my new walnut desk, refusing to let the steady stream of family communications distract me from organizing client files. The launch event was a success beyond my expectations, but apparently, my absence from Mitchell's engagement party had triggered a full-blown family crisis. When I finally checked my messages during lunch, they formed a predictable pattern of guilt and manipulation. Marcus, you had an event last night? Would have been nice to invite family. I breathed slowly through my nose. The passive-aggressive tactic. He knew exactly why I didn't invite them. Next, Mom's voicemail, her voice wavering between hurt and accusation. Miles was so hurt you chose a work party over family. We raised you better than this, Gabriella. Your father is just... he's at a loss. The most telling messages came from my siblings. Their nearly identical wording revealed the family coordination happening behind the scenes. Conrad, you need to apologize to Mitchell. He's really upset. Mitchell, I expected more from you, Gia. A simple apology is all it would take. Lorena, an apology would go a long way right now. Lorena, she was back in line. The alliance, it seemed, was temporary. The final blow arrived just before I closed my office for the evening. An email from Marcus. Subject, your future with this family. Gabriella. Your continued disrespect for your mother, your brother, and me is unacceptable. Your behavior at Mom's birthday was childish, and your decision to skip Mitchell's party was a deliberate public insult. This isn't what families do to each other. Your continued disrespect may result in us having to exclude you from future gatherings, including Thanksgiving and Christmas, until you show proper remorse and apologize to Mitchell and your mother. Think about what you're doing. An ultimatum. Apologize or be disowned. I placed my phone in my desk drawer, locked it, and drove home with the windows down, letting the cool air clear my thoughts. Morning light streamed through my apartment windows as I sipped coffee and scrolled through local news on my tablet the next day. A headline caught my eye. Portland's quiet powerhouse. How Gabriella Montoya is transforming local businesses. I clicked. The article featured photos from the launch. Me, smiling, talking to Jonas Pierce. Photos of my new studio. Quotes from Josephine, from Ms. Alvarez, from 3 other clients. It was a detailed, professional, and incredibly flattering profile of my consulting approach. My phone, which I'd retrieved from my desk drawer, chimed, and chimed again and again. It was a flood of new inquiries from potential clients who'd read the feature, 3 requests for consultations, 2 partnership proposals, and an invitation to speak at a local business leadership forum next month. Walking into my studio felt different today. My heels clicked with purpose against the polished floors. The smell of fresh paint mingled with coffee. My first client of the day arrived, holding a copy of the Commerce Journal. Saw this, he said, tapping the article. Impressive. Which is why I brought a colleague who is interested in your services. I guided them through a presentation with steady hands and a clear voice. During a brief break, I pulled up the family group chat on my phone. The last message was from my father, 24 hours ago. We are waiting for your response, Gabriella. I didn't type a word. I didn't craft an apology. I didn't defend myself. I simply copied the URL of the Portland Commerce Journal article. I pasted the link into the chat. I sent it. Then I silenced all notifications from the group and returned to my clients. The silence, which was once my refuge, had transformed. It was a boundary, a statement, a choice. 2 months later, I stood backstage at the Portland Business Leadership Forum, reviewing my notes. The topic of the panel, Building Success Without Traditional Support Systems. My segment focused on creating professional momentum when family validation isn't available, a subject I knew intimately. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Are you really not coming to Sunday dinner again? I silenced it and put it in my bag. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights were bright. I scanned the audience out of habit and froze momentarily. 6 rows back, sitting alone. My father. His posture was stiff, his suit immaculate, his expression completely unreadable. Our eyes met briefly before I looked away, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had no idea why he was here or how he even knew about it. The event had sold out. He must have bought a ticket. The moderator introduced me, and muscle memory carried me forward. I spoke clearly. I talked about strategic planning, client relationships, and building community connections. I talked about the PNB pitch, reframing it as a lesson in finding the right door, not just the open one. When the moderator asked about overcoming obstacles, I leaned slightly forward in my chair. The hardest part wasn't creating the business, I said, my voice resonating in the quiet auditorium. It was accepting that not everyone who should support you will. I didn't look at him. I looked at the moderator. Sometimes the people closest to you are the most invested in you staying small because your growth challenges their own narrative. The biggest obstacle was giving up the addiction to their approval. So what's the secret? The moderator asked. Success isn't always loud, I said. It doesn't need validation or permission from anyone. It just needs to matter to you. You have to be your own quiet force. Applause followed as the panel concluded. Attendees clustered around the speakers, exchanging business cards. I was deep in a discussion about a potential collaboration with a tech CEO when I sensed someone approaching from behind. That was quite impressive. I turned slowly. My father. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his gaze sweeping over the crowd of people waiting to speak to me. "You've built something real here," he said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of calculated casualness, as if he were commenting on the weather. "Thank you for coming," I said. My voice was steady. "I'm not your enemy, Gabriella." He extended his hand as if offering a truce, a peace treaty. Something shifted in me, not the volcanic anger I once feared, not the desperate need for his handshake I once craved, but something cooler, more certain. I looked at his outstretched hand. I did not take it. "You're not my enemy, Marcus," I agreed. His hand faltered, his expression darkening with familiar disapproval. He was not used to being refused. "But you're not my champion either," I continued, my voice still quiet, still polite. "You're just a man who chose his own pride over respecting his daughter. I've built this, not because of you, and not in spite of you. I built it for me." His hand dropped to his side. Before he could respond, before the anger could form into words, I gave him a polite, professional nod. "Now, if you'll excuse me," I said, "I have clients to speak to." I turned my back on him and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the crowd, exactly as I had once stood at so many family gatherings. Over the next week, the family grapevine buzzed. Aunt Catherine called to tell me I had broken my father's heart and publicly humiliated him. Uncle Patrick, surprisingly, sent an email. "Gia, always knew you had it in you. Don't tell your aunt I said that." The family was splitting along unexpected lines. Some condemned my disrespect. Others, mostly younger cousins, quietly expressed admiration for my independence. When I returned from the studio on Friday evening, a cream-colored envelope waited in my mailbox. An invitation to Thanksgiving at my parents' house, still 3 months away. I almost threw it away. But I saw the handwritten note in my mother's elegant script along the margin. Not a demand, not a threat. "We miss you." I placed the invitation on my kitchen counter. I stood looking at it for a long moment, wondering what kind of peace it offered and what it might cost. A week later, my phone rang. Lorena. I braced myself for another coordinated attack. "Hey," I answered cautiously. "Hey," she replied. The line was awkward. "So, that article was... it was a lot." "It was," I agreed. "Listen," she said, and I could hear her pacing. "I have a weird question. The hospital is... We're trying to rebrand our outpatient services wing. It's a mess. And I was wondering, what would you, theoretically, charge for something like that? I paused. She wasn't calling to yell. She wasn't calling to apologize. She was calling for advice as a professional. "Lorena," I said, picking up a pen, "let's talk about your target demographics." It was the first real conversation we'd had in years. It was fragile. It was unspoken, but it was a truce. 3 months later, light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my expanded studio space. We'd taken over the adjoining unit. A new name was on the glass door: Paxton and Montoya Brand Consulting. Amy Paxton, a strategist I'd long admired, had joined me as a partner. The space was no longer quiet. It buzzed with energy. The Westbrook campaign exceeded their quarterly targets by 23%, I said, clicking to the next slide. My team of 5 consultants nodded, taking notes. 5 people, all reporting to me. "Gabriella," Kendra, my junior associate, said, sliding her tablet toward me, "Bloomberg Business just ran that feature on women-owned consultancies in the Pacific Northwest." She pointed. "You're highlighted in the sidebar. They called you Portland's quiet powerhouse again." I smiled, remembering how I once rehearsed responses to my family's cutting remarks in bathroom mirrors. Now my name appeared in business journals. The revenue reports showed a 40% increase since last quarter. Numbers didn't lie. "Great work, everyone," I said, standing. "Let's wrap for today." As they filed out, I noticed the ease in my shoulders that was never present at family gatherings. The constant tension, the need to defend, explain, and justify. It was gone. That evening, my dining room filled with laughter. 8 people gathered around my table. Amy, Kendra, Ramona, Juliana, and Mateo, local business owners who'd become friends. Rebecca placed a steaming dish of paella at the center. "To the woman who convinced me to invest in social commerce." Daniel, the boutique owner, raised his glass. "My shop would still be struggling without you." "The pajama strategist strikes again," joked Amy, my new partner. Unlike my father's barbs, her teasing held genuine affection. Instead of shrinking, I laughed and raised my glass. "Just wait until you see what I can do in proper clothes." The room erupted in laughter. Looking around at these faces, people who valued my insights, who sought my counsel, I realized I had found what my family never gave me: recognition without conditions. "Remember when you were afraid to tell people what you did for a living?" Ramona whispered as she helped clear plates. I nodded, recalling how I'd mumble vague descriptions of my work, trained by years of dismissal. "Look at you now," she said, smiling. Another Thanksgiving invitation sat on my desk the next morning. My mother's handwriting on the envelope still triggered a phantom anxiety, but it no longer consumed me. The fear of their judgment had diminished with each achievement they could no longer diminish. I'd decided to attend, but on my own terms. I wasn't coming with a rehearsed speech. I wasn't coming to fight. I wasn't coming to beg for their approval. I would bring my portfolio, the leather-bound one, not defensively, not as a weapon, but as a matter of fact, a statement of reality. This is who I am. This is what I've built. The lightness I felt was unfamiliar, but welcome. I'd constructed a life that didn't require shrinking myself to fit into my family's narrow definition of success. I'd stopped waiting for their approval to feel complete. I placed the invitation beside my computer. I turned at the sound of a gentle knock on my office door. My assistant, my second new hire, appeared in the doorway. "Your $10 is here, Gabriella, the CEO from Magnatech Solutions." I stood, smoothing the front of my dress, a gesture that once signaled anxiety but now felt like preparation. "Send him in," I said. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.